Done, brother.
Thank God.
Done, man. Look at this stupid man in her car. I was hiding in the woods, man. I couldn't find her ID, so I snapped a picture and then took off in the woods. Perfect, dude. But you can watch the news tonight or something. I'm sure it's gonna be on there. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
But I just wanted to show you to know where you know it's done.
Sweet.
That's my ex-wife.
Something did happen to her, and I want to try to get information from anyone who can tell me anything about her. Okay.
Okay. What happened to her?
She's no longer with us at the moment. That's why
She died?
This is Tommy Carlton, acting as if he knows nothing about what happened to his ex-wife Elizabeth. But he didn't have the slightest clue about the secret recording that detectives have of him and his hitman Billy.
He said, call me up on the phone crying. The last time I talked to him, I told him on the phone, he was crying. He's like, why can't you come get me, man? And he's crying. He's fucking, he'll turn 11 in June.
So make sure to subscribe to the channel right away, and let's get into the full story behind the crime as we trace it back to where it all started. In 1996, Tommy Carlton and Elizabeth Nicholas met while working as nurses at a medical facility in Florida. They quickly became friends, and later that same year they got married, and their lives seemed blissful. 2 years later, in 1998, their son Eric was born. But the arrival of their only child marked the beginning of a trouble in their marriage. Tommy grew distant, and the couple found themselves locked in frequent arguments over trivial matters. Then, 6 weeks after Eric's birth, Elizabeth made a shocking discovery. While recovering in the hospital after gallbladder surgery, Tommy visited Elizabeth with Eric and told her she needed to keep him overnight. To Elizabeth's shock, Tommy introduced her to a male companion and then revealed that he was gay. He left the hospital with his dinner companion, leaving Elizabeth reeling from a sense of betrayal. As time went on, Tommy spent more and more time away from his male partners. Angered by his deceit and worn down by their escalating arguments, which had even turned physical, Elizabeth filed for divorce in 2000. After their divorce, Elizabeth and Tommy shared joint custody of Eric. Although he primarily lived with Elizabeth, initially the arrangement worked smoothly, with Tommy also making regular child support payments. But after a few years, things changed. Tommy suddenly stopped contributing financially. The shift began when Elizabeth started dating again, eventually forming a serious relationship with a man named Jay Saltzman. The bitterness between her and Tommy intensified. Not only had Tommy neglected child support for years, but he now sought custody of Eric, claiming that Elizabeth and Jay were putting their son's safety at risk. Exhausted by the constant conflict, Elizabeth filed a motion to have the child support terms modified. After some delays, she finally received a court date set for May 14, 2009. But once Tommy received notice of the hearing in January, he abruptly cut off contact, refusing to take Elizabeth's calls and withdrawing entirely from Eric's life. It was as if he had vanished, yet it wouldn't be long before their lives were fatefully connected again. Tommy had dark intentions for Elizabeth. In June 2008, he met a man named Ricky Donovan while attending Narcotics Anonymous, a nonprofit fellowship. The two quickly became friends, and soon Tommy confided in Ricky, saying he wanted to remove Elizabeth from his life. Tommy claimed that Elizabeth and her boyfriend Jay were endangering his son Eric, and he was determined to gain full custody. Ricky then introduced Tommy to another recovering addict named James Wood. Over the next few weeks, Tommy and James developed their friendship. Like Tommy, James had a son from a previous relationship, though he hadn't seen him in years due to his ex-girlfriend keeping her distance. Eventually, Tommy revealed his deadly plans to James, which included poisoning Elizabeth or tampering with her car to make her death look like an accident. Tommy even suggested that if James helped him eliminate Elizabeth, he would in return deal with James' ex-girlfriend, allowing James to be with his son. Initially, James dismissed Tommy's talk as idle, but as Tommy continued to bring it up each time they met, James eventually offered him a potential solution. On May 4, 2009, Tommy met James at the Quality Inn Hotel in Osceola County. James had mentioned a friend named Billy who could help with Tommy's problem. The conversation began casually, but soon, Tommy explained to Billy that he believed his ex-wife and her boyfriend were mistreating his son.
He's with this guy who's beating the scrap out of my son. I can't see him, they won't let me see him, and talk to him, and nothing, he's doing that. He's calling me up on the phone, crying. The last time I talked to him, he called me on the phone, he was crying. He's like, why can't you come get me, man? And he's crying. He's fucking, he'll turn 11 in June.
After a while, Tommy suggested they leave the hotel room, as he seemed uncomfortable staying there, and offered them to continue the conversation in his car.
Can we go on like my car and talk about it? It's a little hesitant about this hotel room.
I don't give a fuck. Whenever get in my goddamn truck or car or whatever, man.
Is that cool?
Yeah, I don't give a fuck.
Alright.
Once in the car, Tommy and Billy started laying out the details of their plan. Tommy made it clear that only Elizabeth needed to be taken care of, and they discussed the timeline. He needed it done by May 14, 2009.
How soon do you need it done? Roughly before like 14. At least a day or two of research, you know what I'm saying? Figure out how I'm gonna do it.
With the time frame set, they began talking logistics. Tommy specified that he didn't want his son anywhere nearby when it happened. Billy suggested a single gunshot to the head as the most effective method.
I plan on using the most effective way to awesome like that is got me back in there.
They then settled on payment.
Who's that boss? How do you want it done? I don't want more than around. Because I want 500 up front and then 15 when it's done. And if I do a business deal with him, I ain't gonna go knocking on your door every day.
$500 up front by Friday, May 8th, followed by 3 installments of $500 over 6 weeks, totaling $2,000. After finalizing payment and the method, Billy advised Tommy to start building an alibi, in case the police turned their attention toward him. Tommy agreed to keep himself visible throughout the week to avoid suspicion. On the afternoon of May 6, 2009, Billy and Tommy met again in a Dairy Queen parking lot in Kissimmee, Florida, to discuss the next steps in their plan. This time, Tommy drove Billy around the city, showing him pictures of his son Eric and his ex-wife Elizabeth.
Just keep driving, keep moving.
Go make a big loop or something.
Yeah. So, look in here, I got the pictures of my son and stuff in there.
Okay, cool. Can I? Oh.
That's about 3 years ago. This is most recent. He hasn't changed much.
He vented about his strained relationship with Elizabeth, sharing his ongoing fears for Eric's safety and the nightmares he claimed to be having. Before dropping Billy off at Dairy Queen, they agreed to check in with each other around midday on Friday, May 8th, 2009.
Early afternoon's better for me, so noon, 1, 2, that.
Yeah, how about like between 1 and 2, Paul?
Yep.
Okay.
At 3 p.m. on May 8th, the two met in a Walmart parking lot in Osceola County. They took a brief drive during which Tommy handed Billy $500.
It's all in.
Just email Holla and let me know when you want me to, visit my friend.
Billy informed Tommy he would head to Elizabeth's house that evening, while Tommy was to wait for a call.
No problem. I'm gonna haul out away now, because yesterday she got off at 6:30 anyway, so. I don't know if you've ever been to that job, but I haven't. It's a sweet spot.
While Tommy was to wait for a call to help establish an alibi. Tommy continued to work his routine, visiting patients and setting up IV drips at their homes. Later that day, Billy called Tommy to remind him to be visible and make sure he was caught on camera, to which Tommy agreed. Shortly after, Billy contacted Tommy again, asking to meet at Walmart. Once in the car, Billy told Tommy the job was done, showing him a photo on his cell phone of Elizabeth with a gunshot wound to the forehead.
Done, brother. Thank God. Done, man. Look at this stupid man in her car. I was hiding in the woods, man. I couldn't find her ID, so I said, I snapped a picture and then took off in the woods. Perfect, dude. But you can watch the news tonight or something. I'm sure it's gonna be on there. You know what I'm saying? So right. But I just wanted to show you to know where you know it's done. Sweet. All right. Oh, thank God. All right, man.
He described in detail how he'd ambushed her, catching her off guard. Tommy appeared relieved that it was over. The two parted ways, agreeing to stick to their alibis and avoid further complications. Moments after Tommy stepped out of hitman Billy's car, he received a call from Detective Irvin Molina of the Osceola Sheriff's Department. Tommy then drove to the station, where he met with Detective Molina and his partner, Detective Brett Roller. Molina explained that they had been advised to contact Tommy by Elizabeth's boyfriend Jay Saltzman. Molina then informed Tommy that something bad had happened to Elizabeth.
That's my ex-wife.
It's your ex-wife?
Yeah.
First of all, the reason why I wanted to talk to you today was something did happen to her. And I want to try to get information from anyone who can tell me anything about her. Okay?
Okay. What happened to her?
You're a doctor, or I'm sorry,
I'm a nurse.
You're a nurse. Okay, so
Not a doctor yet.
There's something that had happened to her. She's no longer with us at the moment. I'm sorry, to have to come straight out and tell you that. That's why
She died?
That's why I really did not want to speak
Yes.
to you on the phone.
Without much reaction, Tommy asked if she was dead. The detectives confirmed that the news was serious, which was why they called him in. Detective Molina then began asking about Tommy's marriage to Elizabeth. Tommy described the relationship as turbulent.
How were you guys when you guys were married?
When we were married, she slept around with me 3 times. The night that that we split up, I came home early from a patient's house, and she was shooting up my kid with something. And that's all on record in Orlando. She had a needle stuck in his arm. She was shooting him up to get him to go to sleep.
With what?
Don't know. I was exhausted. I'd been up for like 40 some hours, and I kicked her out of the house and took Eric and went in the bedroom and pretty much just kind of passed out. When I woke up, she come and got Eric and took him, and she went to South Dakota. It was just a big mess, the whole thing. But that's the norm for her. She just makes up crap. It's just ridiculous.
Claiming Elizabeth was a compulsive liar who had even accused him of assault. He painted her in a negative light, further alleging that she had kept him away from his son and had drugged Eric to make him sleep. Tommy also mentioned that Eric had confided in his best friend, Mary Andrews, about issues with Jay, stating that Jay had been abusive towards him.
So I called and said, "Oh, you want to talk with Mary?" He's like, "Yeah." And she told him that Eric told Mary that that Jay was throwing him across the room, throwing him on the ground, putting his knee in his back, slamming up against a mirror, and there was a big DCF case about it.
He then admitted he had intentionally stopped paying child support to push Elizabeth into taking him to court, hoping to use the opportunity to expose her alleged lies and double standards. Detective Molina asked Tommy if he knew where Elizabeth was currently living. Tommy replied that he believed she had moved in with her boyfriend, claiming he didn't know her current address and hadn't had recent contact with either Elizabeth or Eric. Detective Roller then questioned Tommy about his daily routine and his activities that day. Tommy outlined his usual schedule, detailing the patients he visited and the times he was expected at each location. He mentioned that he spent extra time talking with his neighbor Mindy, which delayed his next appointment. When he arrived to find that the patient wasn't home, He returned to his apartment before heading out again to set up his final IV drip for the day. As he was passing Walmart, he decided to stop and buy flowers for his last patient, but received a call from Detective Molina and went straight to the station.
Said, well, we'll do another patient. So I started to head out to go see Mr. Desmond Martin. He's a patient out in Point Siena. And I saw the Walmart there, and I stopped by. I was going to get some flowers, and then, then that's whenever you called me.
So you were just getting off the turnpike?
Yeah, I just pulled into your parking lot.
You were shopping?
After some additional questions about Elizabeth's personality, Molina and Roller informed Tommy that they were investigating Elizabeth's death as a possible homicide. Tommy responded by saying Elizabeth often angered people and showed little regard for others' feelings, adding bluntly that he hated her.
Everybody in the universe knows that because the way she treated me. I mean, she slept around me 3 times, keeps my son from me, the love of my life, and that's, everybody knows that. But whatever happened, I had nothing to do with it. I mean.
When asked if he had friends in Kissimmee, Tommy replied he had none, apart from his patients. The detectives then showed him a photo of Elizabeth after she'd been shot, but he didn't show much emotion, only asking about Eric's well-being.
And where's my son? I mean,
Your son is safe. Promise you. It's the first place we went. Yeah.
he didn't see nothing happen. He wasn't in the car or nothing.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Moments later, the tone of the interview shifted as Detective Roller introduced Tommy to another agent, which left him stunned. Standing in the doorway was Lieutenant Hardward Griffin, the same man Tommy had come to know as Billy the Hitman over the past 5 days.
You ever met this guy before? I have. I want to introduce this. This is an agent from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. Okay.
Okay.
This was the man James Wood had introduced him to at Quality Inn, the one Tommy had hired to kill Elizabeth and the one who secretly recorded the footage. Detective Roller and Detective Molina then revealed that they had been investigating Tommy for over 2 weeks.
For probably, 2 weeks now? All right, ever since you met Billy?
Before that.
All right. Okay.
Now we understand everything that's happened
So,
between you and Billy. What we don't understand, and I wouldn't like to leave it up to my assumption, is why? Is there something that we don't know that we should know?
I'm not following.
Why would you take the steps that you did to get rid of your wife?
I didn't take any steps to get rid of my wife.
Have you been meeting with Billy the last week?
I saw him, like twice.
Okay. Billy is Agent Griffin. He has been my partner for 5 years. You understand that?
Okay.
So where he goes, I go. So everywhere you've been with him, I've been there with him and with you. Now I understand from the moment that you guys first met, even prior to the moment that you guys first met. But please understand that before I come across you, I don't know you. I didn't know Elizabeth. So I don't understand what would drive a person to that point. There has to be a reason. There has to be a good reason. And I don't want to write down my assumptions of what I've known from you or I know of you. What I want to know is what you really tell me as to why, what happened, what pushed you to that point, to where we are right now.
They also disclosed that Griffin had been working undercover to expose Tommy's plot to murder his ex-wife. Molina pressed Tommy to explain his actions and why he had gone through with the plan. Tommy's demeanor quickly changed as the gravity of the situation sank in. Just then, Sergeant Black, the head of the Violent Crimes Unit who had led the investigation, entered the room. He presented Tommy with the money he had paid Billy and walked him through the surveillance footage that had been collected throughout the week.
You recognize that?
There's $100 bills.
Do you recognize it?
I've had $100 bills before.
Did you give?
I've never seen a package before.
Did you give Agent Griffin any money?
Did I give Agent Griffin? Who's Agent Griffin?
Billy.
Billy.
Let me tell you what you did, okay? You met him in a hotel room, okay? You went inside or had a conversation. You went in there for over 27 minutes. And was it 22 seconds, 27 minutes, 22 seconds? You came out, you walked outside because you didn't want to do anything inside the hotel room because you were trying to be smart, but you really wasn't smart. Then you walked outside, out there, then you talked about it and said you wouldn't give him any details, you know, because you was a pretty smart guy. So you walked outside, all three of you did. You walked outside, you talked to him for a few minutes, and you said you just want out of the way, then you discussed the price. You know, $500 up front, $500 over 2 weeks, because you only get paid over 2 weeks. Okay? Am I so far? Now, I don't want to give you too much information, you know, and all he's trying to do is find out why. You know? Be honest with you, I don't really give a crap why. I mean, it's you. We're trying to find out why you did it.
It's for your benefit. It's not for ours.
Then let me finish.
You did what you did.
Then you left. Then you left. You went up to the hotel room up there, and we went to the front lobby and said, hey, I got a friend lives in 154. I want to rent the room next door to. And they tell you something else. Seen you leave from there, then you go and you go out westbound on 192. Now you go 1.3 miles. You turn around, you come back in the hotel. You go on the east side. You get out and walk around a little bit over, and you look around a little bit more, and you come out, and that guy confronts you again. Still, I'm just having a cigarette before I leave. Then you get up and leave, and you go somewhere else. Then we call you again. I got the exact times, got your voice, got your video. You really didn't want to get in the truck. I got everything, you know. Really, I don't even need to talk to you. I can just lock you up, and take you over there. And I'm done for the night. Go home for Mother's Day. Okay? You hear me? What we're just trying to find out is your opportunity as to why. Well, as to why. You know, if you don't want to say why, then fine. We're done. I don't care.
It was at this moment when Detective Roller told Tommy that Elizabeth was still alive and that the evidence they had gathered was enough to put him behind bars. Tommy, realizing the situation, immediately requested a lawyer.
So will you let me see a lawyer?
The what?
Do you want a lawyer? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, obviously that's what you guys
Listen to me.
take it to.
This is a simple question. Do you want a lawyer? Do you want an attorney? You want to stop talking? If you tell me yes, you want an attorney, you want to stop talking, and we're done. And we'll take you over to jail. It's up to you. That's a simple question. Do you want an attorney?
Yes.
All right, we're done. Stand up now. Stand up. Put your hands back.
And that the evidence they had gathered was enough to put him behind bars. Tommy, realizing the situation, immediately requested a lawyer. He was arrested for solicitation to commit murder, an attempted murder, and was held without bond at the Osceola County Jail. In the weeks that followed, Tommy chose to represent himself in court, and during the trial, the investigation team informed him about the undercover sting operation that had led to his arrest. In early May 2009, James Wood reached out to Sheriff's Deputy David Snyder, a family friend, and shared his concerns about a man he had met through Narcotics Anonymous named Tommy Carlton. James explained that Tommy had confided in him about wanting to hire someone to kill his ex-wife, Elizabeth Nicholas. Initially, James didn't take Tommy's word seriously, but as Tommy continued to bring up the idea, James became more alarmed. On May 4, 2009, James, accompanied by Deputy Snyder, met with Sergeant Wiley Black from the Osceola County Sheriff's Violent Crime Unit. James relayed the full story of Tommy's plot to kill Elizabeth, and after discussing the details, the officers decided to involve Lieutenant Howard Griffin, an undercover agent, to help investigate Tommy further.
I received a phone call from our Violent Crimes Unit, and basically they told me that I need to come in and meet up, and they briefed me on what they had at the time, which ultimately was Tommy Carlton, who was trying to find someone to murder his ex-wife.
With the guidance of Sergeant Black, Detective Molina, and Detective Roller, James called Tommy to arrange a meeting that evening at the local Quality Inn Hotel. Surveillance was set up, and Griffin was prepared for his role as the hitman, Billy. The meeting between Tommy and Griffin was to take place in a hotel room, with surveillance in an adjoining room. During their first meeting, Tommy appeared visibly anxious, worrying that the hotel room might be bugged. James and Griffin reassured him that nothing of the sort was happening. However, when Tommy stepped out of the room to grab a pen, he grew paranoid and looked into the adjoining room through a slit in the curtain. He thought he saw a metal briefcase with a listening device on the desk. Returning to James' room, Tommy shared his suspicions, but after checking again, they found nothing. Still feeling uneasy, the three men decided to sit in Tommy's car and continue their discussion about the plan to kill Elizabeth, which was all recorded. A payment plan was agreed upon, and the meeting concluded with all parties going their separate ways. Over the next 5 days, Tommy met with Agent Griffin 3 more times. During these meetings, Tommy provided Griffin with pictures of both Elizabeth and their son Eric. The two men also finalized the details of how Elizabeth would be killed. After each meeting, they parted ways. Meanwhile, officers made contact with Elizabeth, informing her of Tommy's plan. She agreed to cooperate with the operation in order to catch Tommy in the act. With Elizabeth on board, Agent Griffin prepared for a third meeting with Tommy on May 8, 2009. During this meeting, Tommy handed over $500 to Griffin with a promise of $1,500 to follow over the next 6 weeks. After the exchange, they went their separate ways, and the sheriff's office began setting up the crime scene. As officers took photos of Elizabeth for Tommy's benefit, Griffin called him and instructed him to begin setting up an alibi. Once everything was in place, both men agreed to meet that Friday evening at the same Walmart. With detectives Molina and Roller monitoring the interaction from a surveillance van, Griffin showed Tommy that photo of Elizabeth. After Tommy left Griffin's car, he was contacted by Detective Molina and asked to stop by the sheriff's office to discuss an issue related to Elizabeth. Tommy Carlton's trial began on February 7, 2011, at the Osceola County Court, with Judge Scott Paladino presiding. The prosecution, led by attorney Michelle Heller, argued that Tommy wanted his ex-wife dead and showed no remorse throughout the planning of her murder.
The defendant, Tommy Carlton, hated his ex-wife, and he wanted her dead, and he hired Billy, the undercover hitman, to do so. When Deputy Griffin shows him the cell phone photo, what is his reaction? You'll see it and you'll hear it. Sweet, he says. He's happy. In fact, he's certain he wants her dead, out of the way, out of the picture. He just doesn't want to be caught.
She presented video and audio recordings collected by the Osceola County Sheriff's Office during their sting operation, using them to highlight Tommy's calm demeanor as he carried out his plan, showing no concern for anyone but himself. The defense, represented by attorney Mark Gonzalo, argued that law enforcement had set up the entire situation. He pointed out that Tommy never explicitly used the words murder or kill when discussing Elizabeth in the recordings. Gonzalo further claimed that Tommy was a victim of entrapment by the Osceola County Sheriff's Office.
During jury selection, we talked about a concept called entrapment. You're going to hear videos, the actual words uttered by Mr. Carlton. Because if you listen to the actual words Mr. Carlton uttered, you're never going to hear something that says, "I want her dead. I want you to kill her."
After both the prosecution and defense presented their opening statements, witnesses, including the officers involved in the sting operation, police informant James Wood and Tommy's ex-wife were questioned under oath. Agent Howard Griffin testified about his interactions with both James and Tommy, detailing the entire exchange as captured on camera. He also revealed that Tommy had set a deadline to have the job completed by May 14, 2009. James Wood testified that Tommy had approached him multiple times, and each time the conversation eventually turned to getting rid of Elizabeth. Detectives Molina and Roller provided further testimony about the sting operation, explaining how it was orchestrated and how Tommy's behavior changed during the interrogation when he learned he had been caught.
Did you believe that Mr. Carlton wanted to kill his ex-wife?
Yes.
Okay, and are you able to articulate to the jury why you believed that?
Why I believe that?
Yeah.
I feel like he was very passionate about feeling like
to the relevance of the speculation objection.
Overruled. You may.
Go ahead.
I feel like he was very passionate about feeling that he was wronged by his wife and that for some reason he felt like all his problems would be solved basically if she passed away. I tried to communicate to him and had a discussion with him about, how he would feel with, his son being with him and knowing that, he had something to do with his son's mom passing away. And he didn't seem to care. I kind of tried to offer that because really I was trying to talk him out of it or throw out ideas that would kind of, make him feel like, that maybe it wasn't a good idea, but basically after he wanted to go through with it after that, I pretty much knew he was pretty serious.
Elizabeth Nicholas took the stand and shared her perspective on her relationship with Tommy. She spoke about his revelation that he was gay and expressed her belief that Tommy's desire for custody of their son, Eric, was not genuine. Instead, she believed he was trying to avoid paying the child support he owed her.
When our son Eric was 6 weeks old, I had my gallbladder out and I was in the hospital. He brought a man to my hospital room and he told me that he was gay and he was going out with him for dinner and he left me with the baby.
How would you describe the years since you've been divorced? Just if you had one word to describe them.
Roller coaster.
Tommy then took the stand in his own defense, claiming that he never intended for Elizabeth to be killed. Instead, he said he only wanted someone to scare her and her new boyfriend into allowing him access to Eric.
So he showed up. I said, you want to take care of the problem, be able to see my son. I didn't say, to be able to kill my ex-wife. It was to be able to see my son where I can actually protect him again and see him and guard over him so that he's not being beat when I'm not there.
Detective Griffin says, oh, I know, just tell me what you need done and I'll decide how it's going to work. Your response is, what's it going to cost? His is, what do you want done? You say, them taken out of the way so my son can come live with me. Explain to the jury what you meant when you said that.
Well, yeah, at first he says, what were you thinking, what do you want done? And then he says, I don't work for free. So I said, well, what were you thinking of doing? And then you go back and forth a couple of times there, and then I say, well, what were you thinking price-wise? Because he tacked on the other things. I didn't even know what we were talking about at that point. And then he added in the money issue. So I'm thinking, he was wanting my gas money, because nothing's been specified at all. Frequently, I would give James Wood gas money because he didn't have a job, didn't have nothing. So I didn't know what we were talking about. I didn't know if the guy was going to want drugs to do something or what. Nothing was specified. And in my head, I'm thinking that all that needs to be done to solve this is to have somebody show up and catch Liz walking out of the apartment or something and say, hey, we know that your kid's being beat by this guy. And then just imply, as a show of force, a verbal harangue that don't make us come back, and just let her decide what that means. This is a visual, this verbal incentive, an implication that something would happen if she didn't, just to see if that would stop it, because nothing was going. That's what I'm thinking is happening, because nothing's been specified otherwise. And so that was the first thought of that's why I said I wanted to be able to see my son, not take out, kill, murder my ex-wife.
Tommy also argued that James, a spurned lover, had twisted the story into one of a murder-for-hire plot. Additionally, Tommy explained that he didn't fully understand everything Agent Griffin said during their meetings due to his hearing disability. Both sides presented their closing arguments on February 10, 2011. The prosecution urged the jury to consider the evidence from the surveillance footage in light of Tommy Carlton's testimony, as well as the testimony of the victim, Elizabeth. Meanwhile, the defense stuck to its argument of entrapment, asking the jury to consider that law enforcement had manipulated the case to their advantage. The jury deliberated briefly before reaching a verdict. On the afternoon of February 10, 2011, they found Tommy guilty on both charges.
Division 201, State of Florida versus Tommy Lyle Carlton. Verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder as charged in the information, So say we all, dated at Kissimmee, Osceola County, Florida, on this 10th day of February 2011, signed by the foreperson. Verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of attempted first-degree murder as charged in the information. So say we all, dated at Kissimmee, Osceola County, Florida, on this 10th day of February 2011, signed by the foreperson.
His sentencing hearing took place on April 8, 2011, where Elizabeth delivered a victim impact statement. She told the judge that as long as Tommy remained in jail, it would be the best outcome for both her and their son, Eric. She described Tommy as a good person at the start of their relationship, but over the years he had become a liar bent on destroying others. She concluded by apologizing to everyone affected by Tommy's actions.
My life in the past 2 years has been nothing short of a roller coaster ride, not only for me, but my son, our son, my husband. And, you know, my son used to look forward to going and seeing his dad. You know, when is my dad gonna call? When is my dad gonna come and get me? And now he comes and he asks me, is daddy still in jail? Are we safe? And I have to go to the website and say, yeah, okay, he's still in jail. My life is not what it started out to be. I don't know where it's going. I don't know from one day to the next. You know, if I'm gonna be happy or sad. Everybody asks me how I feel. There's not a word that I know of that could describe adequately what I feel, because I feel them all at once. And you know, everybody asks me if I hate Tom. No, I don't hate him. I loved him so much at one time. And now all I want to ask him and I want to know is why? Because it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know that person anymore. It's not a person that I could ever trust again to be. I just don't know.
Tommy was sentenced to 22 years in prison and was ordered to have no direct or indirect contact with Elizabeth. While he was not prohibited from contacting his son Eric, the boy chose not to reach out to his father. Tommy's appeals to have his sentence reviewed by the state were both denied. Tommy Carlton's actions reveal the dark depths of a person willing to eliminate the mother of his child without a thought for how it might impact his son. Driven by greed, jealousy, and a desire for control, Tommy ultimately alienated himself from everyone who once cared about him. Reflecting on today's case, do you think Tommy received the justice he deserved? And what about James Wood? Do you see him as courageous for stepping up and alerting the police when he sensed something was wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe to Behind the Crime. Give us a thumbs up and share with fellow crime enthusiasts. Have a case you'd like us to cover? Drop us a message in the comments. Until next time, stay safe.